relationship counselor, Elizabeth Overstreet. Everyone has this vision in their mind of what marriage is, how romantic they want it to be, how they're going to raise their children, what the core values are going to be in that relationship. But often we don't tell each other totally what that vision is.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bed Talks. I am so excited to have Nicole Richmond on the show today. I always joke that I have like this Instagram family. I'll be talking to my husband about friends on the internet and he'll be like, how do you know them again? And I'll be like, through Instagram. And it's like, it's funny, you meet people and it's something about, you just feel a connection or understanding of what they're going through and you just naturally connect with them. And like, you never meet them in real life, but you have little messages back and forth, checking in with each other, because you could tell when the other needs a little encouragement or you're just trying to keep cheering them on to whatever they're doing. So Nicole is one of those people. On Instagram, her page is Making a Stylish Exit. So when I first saw that, I was like, what the heck is that about? And then as I started following her, I learned a lot about her. Welcome to the show, Nicole. I want you to tell people a little bit about you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on here. My page, Making a Stylish Exit, was a transition. Before it was Le Divorcee. I had a blog when I started down this long, winding up and down path of trying to get divorced about 5 years ago. And I started a blog just to vent, really, frustrations. It was really difficult being a foreigner in another place, another language, and just trying to maneuver and the ins and outs of this divorce process. And then that switched to Making a Stylish Exit. I felt it was more appropriate. I had kind of grown. I was trying to do it with some style and some grace.
Divorce is just not graceful, right? It's messy, it's ugly, it's bitter. But then it's like anything else, as time goes on and you go through the process, there's definitely a period where you readjust, where if you have, kids in common, that you learn to coexist and co-parent. But I think for people that are out there that may be in a situation where they're on the cusp of a divorce or they're thinking about getting a divorce, one of the things we talked about before we started talking live with the audience is that you kind of know when it's over, but there's this inherent thing in yourself where you want to push through it, right? You want to just you keep trying to make it work because there's emotional factor of you loving this person, not wanting to have to go through this process again, or you wanting to have a united family, right? Because you may have kids in common, or there could be financial considerations. It's very complex. This is a messy situation, but we're just trying to really exist the best way we can through this process. So Nicole, I think your story is very inspirational. She's totally being modest, guys. It kind of took her 5 years, right, to get to this point of getting through, right, the divorce. And now she's kind of learning how to pull herself back together and be holistic. Tell our audience a little bit about what the process was like for you, what you found to be difficult, and how you kind of just navigated through it.
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. Like I said, I'm from the States, from Washington, D.C. I've been living in Geneva 16 years. So it was difficult to navigate. And, you don't have family. I already have a small family, but I didn't have any family here. Like my family really was my ex-husband and his family. I mean, it wasn't like one night I woke up and was like, the next day, I want a divorce. This was years thinking, I'm completely financially on my husband. I don't have a job. I don't have any family. Where am I going to go? And so it took a long time to try to push through. Say, okay, maybe we can try to make this work. And I felt like every year I was writing a letter to my ex-husband, like, we cannot go on like this. Like, something's got to give. And then, there were words, okay, I'm going to do better. We're going to try this. And then, nothing. So after a point, and I have 2 boys. So that really was a catalyst for me saying, I can't have my kids seeing this relationship. I don't want them to think that this is what a healthy relationship looks like, that this is what love looks like. This is how you treat someone that you love. So enough is enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I was totally not prepared at all. I just said, I want a divorce. I cannot do this.
When you are married, there are certain things that you naturally benefit from in being in a relationship. Like you feel protection, right? Because you have a spouse there. If your spouse is the breadwinner, that feels, there's a comfort there, right? With not having to worry about doing those particular duties or handling those responsibilities. So how did you feel like as you went through the process, like what did you learn about yourself? Just figuring out each of those steps. Like, for example, you talked about, your husband was the breadwinner. What was your fear around it? And then how did you overcome that fear?
I really just have stepped out on faith, a wing and a prayer, if you will. Like I said, I had not planned anything. I didn't have any money saved. I didn't have anything. I just knew that I was so unhappy and it had been so long, and my boys were getting older, and to the fact that, they were starting to even realize what was, all the toxicity that was in our relationship. And that was really my catalyst. And I didn't even think, I just said, this is the end. So I was scared. I was nervous, but I said, it will be better. I didn't know how long it was going to take to get better, but I said, in the end, when all the dust settles, I'll be happier. My ex-husband will hopefully be happier. My children will be happier in this process. But in the end, I created with my blog, and now with Making the Exit, I created my own community because I wanted to help people or share what I was learning or going through, and find like minds, and just say you're not alone, or I'm not alone. And I found this community.
I loved a lot of what you said. Like, it was faith, it was a prayer, it was hope, it was wanting something better for my kids. And I think what's interesting about us as humans is that sometimes we want what's best for us, but we may not take the steps to take what's best for us. But when there's something outside of ourselves that we know could benefit from that change, like children or our family, or just something that you're trying to build, it can move you to do things you never thought you could do. So I think you should give yourself credit that you kind of just kept pushing through it, started building a tribe around you of people. And what people don't realize, like, I'm a relationship coach. A lot of times people inspire me the same way they think that I'm inspiring them. Like, there's things you guys give back to us as we're going through similar challenges that helps us to stay strong, because we're like, wait, I got to pull this together because there's people leaning into me and hoping that they can learn from this, right? And I can't lead them down the wrong road. So I think that you did a lot of really positive things to kind of keep yourself uplifted and focused during a difficult time. And then on the back end, you said, like, now it's gotten better. So tell people, once you really work through all the fears, right, of going on your own, being a single parent, trying to just recuperate, right, from being with someone, what does that feel like for you? What have you learned about yourself that you wouldn't have known?
One thing that I've learned about myself, that I am stronger than I ever imagined. Like my mom, I was talking to her and she's like, I don't know how you do it. And I was like, I don't have any other choice but to do it. There is no other choice. I have to get this done. And so I just became strong. And, there were, dark days and darker days, but I felt like I was doing the right thing. I felt that, I had given my all. Like, you do feel like a bit of a failure. You do feel like, I couldn't, keep my marriage together. And after I had this huge fairy tale, some people think fairy tale life, marriage, and here I am. And I remember when I told some people that I'm getting divorced, and there was the common theme was like, why are you getting divorced? You have such a good life. You have this great house and you travel and you have money and you do this. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh, but it's like he's beating you. And I'm like, oh, so he's not beating me, so I should just stay in an unhappy marriage because, there's verbal abuse. It's not only physical abuse.
I definitely agree that I think the hardest times to consider if you should stay in a relationship or not is when it isn't black and white, meaning if someone's has an addiction to drugs or alcohol, easy, okay, nope, I need to leave this, right? But even in those situations, it's not always easy for people to leave. If they physically abuse me, okay, I need to leave. But when it comes to the more softer things like emotional abuse, it's just very toxic. You're in this circular situation where you just know it's not going to work because it's very unilateral, meaning there's only one party really committed to making it work or committed to trying to pull it through. And marriage does have its ups and downs. It's not perfect all the time. So definitely you're gonna have challenges, but I just think some things are still deal breakers, even if it's not so black and white. It's weird that people will place a higher weight on the perception of things, right? I think the results of that are more long lasting, meaning one day you wake up and realize 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years. And we've seen couples like this. We're like, how did they stay together 40 years and then it's over? And they did it kind of because they knew it was, they didn't want to do it. And maybe they did it for their family or whatever, but they will tell you they would have wished to make that decision earlier to end it and move on because they kind of probably may have missed out on having what they wanted. But it's just interesting that people will hold on sometimes for the material things. And I always feel like with the material things, you can rebuild. You can figure out how to do it once, you can figure out how to do it again. And there's almost more power in figuring that out on your own sometimes because it gives you a different type of confidence. So you're more particular about who you allow in your space the next time because you're a proven model. You're like, okay, I had this relationship. I left. It was hard. I had to start over, but I built myself back up. So whoever comes in, you're going to be more selective about who you allow in that space. So if someone's sitting in your shoes of what you understand now that happened many years ago, and your divorce was just finalized this year. So this is fresh for you. What would you advise a woman or a man that's going through the situation to do? If they know they're thinking about divorce, what would be practical steps?
In my situation of being, like the stay-at-home mom, being financially dependent on the other person, save money, put money aside. Like I was just out here not saving any money. So when that time came, I had no nest egg, I had nothing. I mean, even if you're working, start to put more money aside to plan for that rainy day, that thunderstorm day. Because I mean, all divorces aren't wars, but all of them are not, easy, quick, and, cut and dry.
And so I would say for men and women, when you're married, you should have transparency to financial things that are going on. There should be transparency of how the money comes in and how the money goes out. And I'm not saying you take over that responsibility, but allow them to show you what's happening. Because I've seen so much of a reckoning sometimes where people don't have transparency to what's going on. They think things are being paid. They're not being paid. They end up in foreclosure, or they end up not knowing monies are being diverted certain places. If you're dating someone and you get to the point you're serious and you're getting engaged and they don't want to talk about finances, run. Because the whole point of marriage is you're coming together, and if you can't be transparent financially, and I know that people are going to say there's nuances, and I can honestly attest to, I've dated some really successful people, and it's true, they're more closeted about things because of business, but when they really love you, they still will have a conversation with you about it. So if someone's not willing to have a conversation and have some transparency around what's going on financially, don't do it. Or what are some things that you're really happy about now that you've kind of finalized the divorce, you're raising your 2 sons? What are the things that you are just like make you pretty happy about the new state of your life?
Through it all, even, maybe not on the darkest day, but through it all, I still believe that asking for the divorce and then, having a divorce is one of the best decisions I made for myself and eventually for my kids. I actually feel happy again. I'm happy. Just, even sitting at home and looking out the window, I am happy. So just being happy, I feel like I'm coming back to myself, finding my lane, like with the blog, the community I created. I'm just happy. I wrote a book and had it published. So I feel like I'm more myself, like the self, like when I was in high school or early 20s.
I like what you said about just like being proactive, understanding that, it's going to be challenges along the way, but in the end, you're landed in a good place, and that's the transition you're going through. And at the end of the transition is peace, right? You have peace of mind, peace of spirit. You recognize there's things you're still going to have to grow through with your kids and still deal with your ex-husband, but you can manage through that because you kind of have like mentally, right, prepared yourself to get through those things. So I think that's really encouraging. Why don't you tell them the name of your book? You mentioned you wrote a book, and also kind of where people can find you if they want to learn more about you.
Yeah, so the book is called Making a Stylish Exit, Random Stories of Dating After Divorce. It's my story of trying to get back out there on the dating scene. I had some very funny encounters. So that's what I talk about in the book. And you can find me on the same thing. Making a Stylish Exit is my Instagram. Now I have a podcast as well, Making a Stylish Exit, but this is Confidently Moving On. So it's about the next steps and, love, dating, relationships, self-care, how to, keep yourself together through this process and even beyond.
Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your experience with our listeners. I think that there will be people that will listen to this and feel a little bit more peace of mind going through a divorce or a major transition, because I think the themes are similar. We just fear what we don't know until we're in it, and then we're like, man, I am stronger than I thought I was. I like that you're taking this time to kind of just figure out like who you are, what makes you happy, what makes you tick. You're starting to date, but you're kind of like, it's kind of comical, some of the things that you're encountering right along the process.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. And that was one of the reasons why I created the community. I created what I couldn't find, because I believe sharing your story, even if it helps one person, that's already, wonderful. Because, and especially being here, the resources are different. So I kind of created a safe space or safe community for people, women, mostly women, but men are always welcome to just vent and share their stories and share their experiences. So,
and I'm sure women and men appreciate that, because going through divorce is one of the most difficult things I think that you can go through. But I think you learn so much about yourself in the process, and it doesn't feel good in the moment, but on the back end, look at all the wisdom that you've gained and that you can now share back to your community to help them through it. And I think that part of it's rewarding. So thank you so much for being on the show, Nicole.